Welcome to Road America, everybody, for the 13th round of the Pirelli GT4 America Sprint Championship presented by Window World. And this is a track that presents great challenges in the dry. As you can see, it is gray and dark and raining at this facility, and that's going to make this very interesting. One of the reasons is this is the Sprint Championship. No driver changes. The GT4 cars fielded and run by one driver for the duration of the 50-minute race, and the field is lined and queued and ready to go down on the pre-grid staging area, and down there as well is Ryan Marine.
Hi, Greg. Thank you so much. Well, yeah, it is still raining. That's certainly one of the big storylines because the touring car race that preceded this Pirelli GT4 America race was actually shortened a little bit due to track conditions. The good news, though, is the rain has lessened since that race has concluded, so hopefully that means track conditions are good for the race here today on Sunday. This is race 2 of the weekend, which is important because race 1 saw a big shakeup in the point standings in the Pro class. You can see the number 50 Panos right here, right behind me on the grid. Ian James, the driver, came into the weekend as the points leader in that class, but only scored a single point yesterday, has lost that points lead now to Michael Cooper. Spencer Pumpelly very much in the mix. It's really tight at the front, and he's going to have to come from the back today because of an engine issue that materialized during the race. They had to change that engine overnight. They're good to go, but because of the engine change, Ian James has a long way to go to get into the points and fight for that championship.
All right, thanks very much, Ryan. Great information from down on the pre-grid as we show you that starting lineup. And there you see Cooper Pumpelly. He talked about it, Calvin Fish alongside here. Huge compression in the points championship at the front of the field.
Oh, it's intense. There's 4 points separating what we believe would be the favorites coming into this championship season. We don't have many events to go, only 3 left on the table. Michael Cooper has gone to the front now, but by a single point over Ian James, and Spencer Pumpelly is only 3 points further back. So it's game on in this championship. This could be a pivotal day, and who claims that title in Las Vegas in a few weeks.
Absolutely. Big field of cars here, 20 cars, and you can see that we're showing you the starting lineup. And the big news there, Cooper Pumpelly, then the 2 Robinson Racing Chevrolet Camaros of Lewis and Gar Robinson, then Andrew Davis. But outside of that third row, starting on pole in the AM category, is Drew Stavely in the G3 Ian Lacey Racing Mustang. As tight as the championship is in the pro side of things, he's got him pretty covered here in the AM.
Yeah, he's actually clinched it. He's got a 76-point lead. There's only 75 points left on the table with the 3 events, but all we have right behind him is now a tie between Tony Gaples and Alan Brynjolfsson. And added motivation for Alan is the fact that he's very high up in the Porsche Cup points globally. It's a big championship where points are scored around the various championships, and Christian Reed currently has the lead, but Alan is scoring a bundle of points here this weekend.
And let's take a look at Road America. It is an absolute gem to be sure. It's going to be challenging today.
It is 14 turns, just over 4 miles, just over 6.5K, as you can see. Broken down into the 3 sectors. The first sector is all about speed, climbing that long front stretch up into turn 1. High-speed corner in dry conditions. Obviously, you have to tread carefully today. And then the long run down into to start sector 2 down into turn 5. 2 of the most challenging corners, particularly in these conditions, are going to be the carousel, that long right-hand turn, and then the high-speed king that finishes off sector 2. And then coming out of Canada corner, I feel, is one of the most treacherous runs on this circuit with the way that the circuit is laid there. So watch for guys to really have to be careful throughout the course of this race.
And to put in perspective that battle that's tied for second in the AM points between, as you said, Gaples and Brynjolfsson. Tony Gaples, second place yesterday. They will be starting very close to each other in the pack, and Jeff Courtney splits them. A lot of local track knowledge. This one's going to be good when we get it underway here, as we said, at a damp Road America. And we knew that the McLaren should be good here. Black Dog has been able to do some work during the break before the Glen to sort through a few things. But I'll tell you what, Tony Gaples put on one of the best drives I've seen him put on in a while, off of a great qualifying, which we don't often see him do. He qualified that thing 3rd.
Yeah, he's a great racer. He always moves forward, and he didn't have his father move forward yesterday because he had a great qualifying run on top of things. But the McLaren is working well. They've really come back from that big midsummer break that we had a lot stronger, and that was really the game plan moving in. When I spoke to Ray Sorensen very early in the year, he said, we need that break. We need to score some points early on for Michael Cooper, reset and come back stronger. They've done that. They now have the championship lead, but it was a big win for them on home turf here yesterday.
And Tony, with that finish that he had, set second fast lap. in the race, which establishes the grid for today's race, and by a bit. He was about 6/10 clear of most of the rest of the field behind him. So Tony dialed in, and Michael Cooper, he did what Michael Cooper does in that race. His opening lap was just magnificent. As usual, got to the front and just controlled it.
One of the things here, you want to have the car working well in these conditions, but also you want to have the car working well in terms of visibility, having that windshield clearing itself, so the wiper system's working well, the defogging systems are working well. Spoke to Jimmy Fraser from Robinson Racing. He said, if it rains, we know our cars should be good. They've really worked really hard in terms of making sure that the drivers can see where they're going, and visibility could be a big concern with the amount of water here on the circuit right now.
And they're going to be following the form that they showed for the touring car race that ran before this. The clock has started. They're going to give them one more lap behind the safety car here to give them an opportunity to just get a little bit more feel for this track. And I think, as Ryan had alluded to, right at the end of that touring car race, the rain really picked up, and that's why they ended it early. It's abated a bit. It's still raining, but as a result, this track still has a lot of water on it. And the second lap just helps these GT4 cars with their bigger tires and the like just disperse some of that water, doesn't it?
It does, and I think for the pace car, if he could scoot along a little bit more, that'll give the drivers a bit more feel at a little bit higher rate of knots. I think knots is the appropriate word
I
here
think you're right. Absolutely it is. And this is the run through the section of track called the Moraine Sweep. Of course, this track carved out of the Kettle Moraine Forest. Hills all formed by glacial moraines back in the Ice Age days, and this is a track that has utilized that landscaping, if you will, to great effect.
It's just a brilliant property, the way it cuts through, so much elevation change you see down into turn 5, then that big climb up the hill. What that means is when you have that elevation change, you brake so much later because the car just slows down instantly. So the braking points move up, and conversely, when you're coming downhill down into turn 5 that they just came through, and then down into turn 8, which is a couple of corners further ahead from where we sit right now. You have to brake a little bit earlier than normal, but super challenging, and these conditions is going to be about finding the grip. But as we saw in the touring car race, the rain line is not such a big advantage. By the rain line, that's typically where you're getting off the normal racing line and picking up more grip. Road America is kind of quirky that way. It doesn't give you such a delta between the two lines, so it allows you to have good, hard racing. There you see Spencer dropping way back. He's going to take a little bit of a run here. Up on Michael Cooper, you see the gap that Spencer's created, or does he have a problem?
Uh-oh.
Spencer has shut it down, maybe?
Well, there he is now. Wonder if he had a moment.
He had to do a reset, something electronically, possibly.
Yeah, unbelievable development here. Now, lights are out. That's the indication, so we are anticipating getting the green. As we said, the clock has started on this 50-minute timed event. And the drivers said, no, we're willing to give up a race lap here to get just a little bit more familiar with the grip levels on this track here.
I saw Spencer suddenly slow out of turn 8. I thought he was trying to try to create a gap and rush into the carousel, get a feel for the car before we get to green flag racing. But I think there's more to it than that. He's allowed 3 cars to jump around him. And I'm not sure by the regs if he can get back up there, because we're basically under a yellow caution condition. Track, the race has started.
Exactly. I think
he's just got to sit still, and hopefully the car is running 100%.
Lights are out on the Acura NSX, the official safety vehicle. This Pirelli GT4 America Sprint presented by Window World. Round 13, about to get the green flag. Clock has already started at the end of the first of the 2 pace laps, if you will. Big development. Spencer Pumpelly, during this second lap, coming out of turn 8, suddenly slowed and has dropped back in the order. There he is from his second starting spot down into 5th. And because we're under a full course caution scenario, if you will, you can't pass. So he's just given up 3 spots here as this field being led to the green by Michael Cooper. Again, clock has started. But that Black Dog McLaren, clear visibility, green flag is out, round 13 is underway. Chased hard by the 2 Robinson Racing Camaros, then Andrew Davis. Now Spencer trying to get to the outside of Davis, trying to make up for whatever happened here. And look at also Shane Lewis trying the outside into turn 1. He's trying to roll speed, Cal.
He is, and he's running that outside line. Michael protects to the inside. He's going to try and take that brake position down into the middle of the road there for turn 3. So Shane Lewis, the first of the bright orange, blue, and white Robinson Racing Camaros, who's leading the charge right now. There you see Tony Gables having a great run here this weekend on his home circuit, just behind Jared Andretti.
I think Tony then may have snuck around Stavely. We'll have to keep an eye on that. It's great here. So you see Spencer now trying to come up. He got around Davis. Now he's trying to make the move on Robinson. Does so down into turn 5. We got a report from Ryan in the pit lane that the team said that they had to do a reset in these wet conditions. I'm sure they were talking just an electrical reset on the car. Looks to be good now.
Well, Spencer's a smart guy, and he just pulled over, got it done as quickly as he could. So he picked the spot on the racetrack to do it effectively, and he's back in the game. Certainly running really quick now. Has moved back up to the 3rd position from initially starting 5th after that little problem.
And I misspoke a little too soon here, which means that I plan on doing it again, I guess. It's not a good way to put it, but I thought Gables had maybe moved up, but it was Stavely had a really stout start as well. There he is. And as a matter of fact, Jared Andretti was able to get around Stavely, and now Spencer looking a little tighter line through the carousel, trying to find a way by Lewis.
Cooper's just taken off. He's feeling comfortable in these conditions right now and has gapped the rest of this field.
Boy, Spencer willing to just hang it out a little bit here, looking into the kink. But this is an area you're just going to be a little genteel with till you really get a sense of the grip here. But Spencer up on it a little bit. He may have been able to get that car to the outside of Lewis.
He's looking right now. They're running side by side there as they come down through the kettle bottoms. He gets that position away from Shane Lewis. Now he's got to go try and chase down Michael Cooper. Remember, Ian James had problems here yesterday, came in as the championship leader, scored a single point. So it's game on for the championship. Has allowed Spencer and Michael back into the game.
And for Ian James, Cal, he has dropped back at the end of that first lap of green to 16th from where he started. So struggling early, it would seem. He started in the 7th spot, so this one not going well for him either.
Well, being a Brit, he should be very comfortable in these conditions. I wonder if there's some kind of technical issue. They made that engine change overnight after a misfire yesterday, so curious to know what's going on with one of our championship contenders.
What a change of fortunes for him after having swept 17 and 18 and having 4 straight wins coming in here. This one not going well for him at this stage. Cooper leads it. The margin back to Pumpelly is 3.4 seconds at Cooper's fast lap. A couple seconds clear. I'm sure visibility a big part of that as well. Lewis and Robinson, and then Davis. That's your top 5. Stavely continues to lead in the AM category, but there's Alan Brynjolfsson, who has been able to get out and around and has passed Tony Gables. Brynjolfsson on the move up to 8th overall, 2nd in class in that bright yellow Volt lighting portion.
Yeah, and as I mentioned earlier, he's very much in contention for the Global Porsche Cup, so all of these positions are pivotal in that. Christian Reed, who runs over in Europe, currently has that lead. Spoke to Mike Johnson about it. He said, yes, we've got some championships in mind, but also for Alan, he is thinking about that. Would be a big feather in his cap.
He has taken off, doing a nice job here. There now is Ian James, who after dropping back on that one lap has already pulled himself up 4 spots.
You see the visibility that we have from our cameras, and same for the drivers. They're going to struggle to see through here. There we focus on Jared Andretti, coming off a brilliant overall victory the last round of the championship at Watkins Glen.
Here's the number 2 of Jason Bell running for Global Motorsports Group in the Ceramic Pro entry, and has made his way down into pit lane. And speaking of pit lane, let's check in with Ryan.
Well, the answer to the Ian James situation is he's not having any problems. He actually had to start at the rear of the field because of the engine change overnight, so he lost that grid spot. So he's actually making his way forward, which is good news because, as we've talked about, yesterday was kind of a disastrous day for him and the Panos team in the championship.
Yeah, it was, and thank you very much. Yeah, with an engine change, that is the regulation that you go to the back of the field. And so he's making a nice charge up through the pack. Let's see if he can find his way up into the top 10 early here at Road America. And you talked about that visibility issue, Cal. There are parts of this track, particularly the early part of the Moraine, or the late part of the Moraine sweep and all the way through Kettle Bottoms, where the trees are so close that kind of like the Nürburgring in Europe, the moisture just gets trapped in there, doesn't it?
Yeah, it just hangs in the air. We see Ian James, so I believe the car is healthy. That engine change done last night, a lot of work for the Panos Group. They're such a professional outfit, they'll just take things like that in their stride, but certainly a disappointing day for them. Who knows how important that point is that Ian James got on the final lap yesterday when he got around Brynjolfsson and just moved himself back into the top 10.
It's a great move right there by James, going around the outside of Michael Dynan in the Flying Lizard Porsche in turn 14. And that should put him up firmly into the top 10. And he gets a great run and gets by Brynjolfsson as well. That could put him up into 8th. So Ian James is indeed making his way up through the pack. He just turned a 247.7. So that's still well off with the running at the front, but relative to everybody around him here, he's moving.
He is. He's got pace, and I think once he gets in some clean air, he can probably run the lap times of the leaders at least. And speaking of the leaders, Cooper still leads by now just under 3 seconds as Pumpelly has cut a half a second out of that gap. Pumpelly now has the fastest lap of this race at a 2:43.8.
Give a shout out here as well to Marco Radicic and the PrecisionDrivingTech.com BMW. Started in the 5th spot, but dropped back a little bit, but has now fought his way up to 4th in class, behind only now Stavely, Brynjolfsson, and Dynan. And Marco Radicic having a good run here in the wet as well. And boy, there's just the indication of what these conditions are like here at this track right now.
It is airy.
Oh boy, isn't it?
And it is hairy on the racetrack.
Eerily hairy. Here's Tony Gaples. Looks like he's just really searching for some grip out there. There's a look at Marco Radicic. Having a nice run. Carries the, obviously, precision driving tech, but also has on those rear fenders, word love. Somebody going awfully slowly there. Marco able to drive by. Let's see who's, was that Dynan? Looks like Dynan having a little bit of an issue. And Michael Cooper continuing to lead, although Spencer Pumpelly trimming things just a little bit, running slightly quicker laps here at Road America. Let's get down to pit lane for an update from Ryan.
We saw Jason Bell coming down pit lane just a few moments ago and quickly checked in with the crew. They mostly left pit lane because evidently there was some contact on track. The wheel wasn't pointed straight, so Jason has elected to drive the car behind the wall, and it appears they are done for race number 2 of the weekend.
Oh, that's a shame. Certainly he and Alec Udell had a tremendous run in the GT4 Sprint X race, and Drew Stavely, who had been very comfortable in the lead in the AM class, had already clinched the championship, but running in the top 6, had an off down in Canada Corner, Cal.
Yeah, north of the track limits, I guess.
Yep.
But he can relax a little bit easier here today. He's clinched that championship for the 2nd time, and double yellows. I'm not sure if that's for a car that's abandoned out on the racetrack or whether these conditions, again, just as we saw in the touring car race a little bit earlier this morning, a lot of water on the track right now.
Oh, Stavely, he may have been touched there.
It doesn't take much.
No.
A little bit of contact, a little bump, and there's just not the grip underneath you. But I will say I am so impressed by these Pirelli wet weather tires. These conditions are pretty abysmal, and all of the drivers seem like they're in pretty good control. They're trying to make the most of it, but you're not just on a skating rink right now.
Exactly. I mean, you know, when you're running a 243 in these conditions, you've got a little bit of grip there. We saw that little step out by you know, Pumpelly, but that's just him hustling that car, isn't it?
It's him hustling the car in that particular corner. I think that's the trouble spot coming out of Canada Corner. Not where we saw Stavely off, but a little bit further out.
Right.
And that's the problem. You think you finished the corner off in terms of the load and the traction, and suddenly you got to be right on your toes.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get back down to the pits, Ryan.
I did check in with an official as to the rationale for yellow, if it was something on track or the conditions. And while there has been some action on track, apparently, ultimately the conditions is what led to this yellow. So kind of a repeat of what we saw in the touring car race earlier today.
Well, the rain is obviously significantly picked up once again, and we were seeing it. Now, of course, our cameras, Cal, you know, that big compression on those zoom lenses makes things work, sometimes look a little worse than they are, but a couple of those spots out there, the visibility, it was thick.
It was, and this is good and bad news for Ian James. He's got that car up into 7th, the number 15 Panos Avezzano, but he needs to get back to green flag racing. So a lot of the gaps have been compacted here, but that's not going to help him if we don't see any further action. So it's been a good start to this race from the back of the grid. With that engine change, he had to move out of that initial starting position that was awarded based on his fast lap yesterday. But he needs some green flag action, because the problem is the guys who are around him in the championship, Cooper leads coming in. Yep. He leads this race. He'll extend that lead. Pirelli's going to gap Ian James as well.
Yeah, we just had a shot fairly close in the front of Jared Andretti's Window World Endurance Warranty McLaren from Andretti Autosport. There's definitely a little bit of a wrinkle in the bodywork up front. So it might certainly look like he and the number 12 Estavely might have had a little bit of an issue. And we're talking about James' drive up through the pack, some other great drives that are unfolding. The recovery by Spencer Pumpelly, certainly. But again, Marko Radisek finds himself third in the AM class right now. After having dropped back right at the start, he has been throwing down some laps, set his personal best right before the caution came out at a 252 cal, and everybody around him was high 259s as well. So he is finding it here in the wet. And as we are under caution here, let's get back down to the pits and ride.
Well, let's check in with the Panos team. Stefan Pfeiffer oversees this operation. A busy night, a busy afternoon, I suppose, for your guys yesterday to get Ian's car ready to go after the engine issue. So I'm sure this yellow is not what you were looking for, right? Because Ian was making some real progress.
Actually, kind of, yes, we were waiting for this yellow because we didn't want the other guys to run away. He was making progress, but we're also looking forward to another green so we can get closer to the other competitors up front. And the rain is actually helping, but it's getting really heavy now, so I hope they continue going so we can make a little bit more progress to the front.
What has he said about the conditions?
He's okay with it. It's just the traffic right now. He has to get through.
All right, we appreciate the time. We'll let you get back to work.
Thank you.
He has had an absolutely remarkable season, and there have been tracks that certainly, as Ian has explained it, the architecture of the Panos Avezzano GT has suited the tracks well, but it's also been one of those years when we have seen him put up some of the most heady drives you can imagine.
It's a quality group. I mean, Ian now has a team management role there as well, so obviously has to oversee how the guys are working on his car. They got Preston Calvert and Matt Keegan leading in the Sprint X AM division this year on the national championship. So he's a multitasker, but when you put him behind the wheel, it's all game in terms of he gets his focus back and just reads a race really well, and that's what you have to do over these sprint rounds of the championship. I mean, certain racetracks, tire degradation can be a factor. He seems to be the master at that, and always has a car that's strong at the end.
Well, you have to have that level of bandwidth because you're going up against guys like Cooper and Pumpelly and Lewis and Robinson that have it as well, and he certainly has been up to the task. Just getting a look at some of our camera shots here. In between, after the touring car race, that was the first race that unfolded this morning, the break in between looked like there were some breaks in the clouds that were forming and the like, and it has just rolled back in again and is thick one more time here. And you can see the rain has definitely picked up. And keep in mind, folks, we're, what, 15, 20 minutes at the most west of a huge body of water in Lake Michigan. And it has an immense effect on weather that rolls through here. And what can happen, something that can roll through quickly, that lake sometimes can just stall it out. And you get these kind of conditions just a little bit. Having lived here over the years a couple of different times, witnessed that in person, and it's just part of the nature of the area.
It is. For these drivers, there'll be some who said, you know, I've had enough for the day.
Yeah,
and there's
exactly.
others who have a totally different agenda. I think for Pumpelly, he has a very fast race car. He set the fastest lap of the race. He needs to, I mean, you think, okay, a podium's a solid result. We're running out of rounds.
Yes.
And if you have any kind of deficit, these single positions can really have a big effect in the championship outcome.
Yeah, we just had a shot of turn 5, and you can see every car down rolling through the apex is just throwing up a huge wake. This rain is heavy right now, and I'm sure, Ryan, you're very aware of it.
Yeah, to quote Caddyshack, I don't think the heavy stuff's come in yet. But here we are with Ray Sorensen from Black Dog Speed Shop. Good news, it's your guys out front. He seemed to be thriving in these conditions before the yellow, Michael Cooper.
Yeah, I mean, it's always good to be up front where you can see, so that helps everything. But, you know, it's really raining hard, so it's going to be difficult here.
You've been around this game a long time. What do you do on a day like this? You got to get through the weather. You got to deal with it yourself, all the electronics. Yeah. There's a whole lot that goes into this.
Oh, for sure. I think the biggest thing is to not make a mistake. So, but I think that's the biggest tide of it. We've never run these cars in the rain, so this is all new to us. So, so far it's going okay. Tony's doing okay in the back. He's just having a little trouble seeing with all the spray. So.
Yesterday was big for the championship, actually, for both of your guys, but especially for Michael, who was able to take the points lead. I know you don't necessarily wish ill on your competitors, but you were there to pounce.
Yeah, I mean, it's some days it's your day and sometimes it's not, and we've had that situation before for us. So, but we're lucky that we were able to be in that position yesterday. So, you take it when you can.
What do you think? What are the odds we go back to racing in this thing?
With this amount of rain, I don't foresee it. So we'll just have to see. I think it's getting pretty bad in the back with all the standing water.
Has Michael or Tony said a whole lot about even under safety car conditions what they're dealing with?
Tony was not happy that it went yellow. He was preferring it to stay green. I think he finally got a spot where he could see, so he wanted to stay there. So Michael's not saying much. We're just kind of trying to dig forward. So.
All right, sounds good. We'll let you try and stay dry. All right.
Thank you.
The one thing you can never say about a team as experienced as Black Dog is Cinderella story out of nowhere. So continuing under the safety car due to borderline torrential rains right now here at Road America. Well, folks, there is the finish line, the checkered line, and currently it is a wash as we are under the safety car conditions still. Very wet Road America for this 13th round of the Pirelli GT4 America Sprint Championship presented by Window World. And right call, Cal. I mean, just look on the edge of the track right there. You can see the puddling. But where I really noticed it was when they ran down between turn 5 from the exit, the apex to the exit of turn 5. The cars were literally throwing up some wakes. And you can see that little bit of contact between Andretti and Stavely is now under investigation.
Let's take another look at it here. We saw it develop late on our initial shot. Let's take a look here. Coming down into turn 12, it's like, I'm not sure if Drew was trying to make a move to the outside or whether Jarrett was trying to get to the inside or were they just running side by side and ultimately had contact once you got to the turning point for the corner. Fortunately, Drew didn't get stuck in the gravel as he's up and away again, yes, but certainly lost a bit of ground in that exchange.
Well, on that lap at that point, earlier in the lap, Drew was still in front of Stavely. He'd gone, or Drew was still in front of Andretti. He had started a couple of spots clear of him, and then when James had to go to the back, he was right in front of Andretti, and they were having a pretty good little duel. So interesting to see what the stewards have to say about that. But let's take a look here as just want to watch here. We're going to get down to Ryan Marine in just a second, but just have a look. For those of you who are going, well, is it really that bad out here? Watch the cars as they get to the apex and then track out down here at 5 at the bottom of this braking area right there. Just look at the amount of water that is coming off of those tires right there. It is absolutely a wash. Ryan?
Well, we got Darren Law here from Flying Lizard, and let's talk about your driver first. Michael Dinan had a great start to the race yesterday. The restart didn't go quite so well, so unfortunately there's some damage to a race car, but looking pretty comfortable in these conditions so far today.
Yeah, actually he's doing a nice job. This is his first year racing with us and overall and in a pro series, and this is really one of his first wet races. So with the conditions out there, he's done a great job. He's moved up several positions, so fingers crossed we make it through the race here.
Yeah, so looking around, we talked to Ray Sorensen from Black Dog a moment ago, and he thought pretty unlikely if the rain stays like this that we go back to racing. You see it the same way?
Yeah, I mean, really, honestly, obviously the officials make the call, but the drivers need to call in and let us know how bad it really is, whether we've got rivers flowing across the track. But by the looks of pit lane here, I don't see this, for sure not going back to green for a while at least.
You've driven your fair share of races, many of them in the wet. Did you enjoy it? Would you like to be out there on track on a day like today?
You know what? I'm sure some guys say they love it. In certain conditions, it's a lot of fun. When it's this wet and this deep of water running, it's not fun. You're hanging on. You can't push. It's really tough.
And speaking of your driving career, it resumed the last race weekend at Watkins Glen. You weren't there because you were over in Barcelona doing a race. How did that go?
I went over. CP Racing invited me to come over and run in the 24-hour in their Mercedes. So I hadn't been to Barcelona yet, but for me, I mean, the team management, that's what I'm doing nowadays, obviously, and the driving has definitely slowed up. But I'm in the seat quite a bit, so I showed up there, and I wasn't too rusty. I had a really good time, a lot of fun.
That's good to hear. All right, well, if we do go back to green, how do you feel about your driver's chances of making a run through the field?
You know what? I think he's got a good chance. He's just obviously got to stay out of trouble. He's got a great coach in Robbie Foley, who's on the radio with him the whole time, working with him and talking to him. So, you know, our goal here is obviously we can't win it from where we're at. We just need to get through this and learn from it, you know.
Sounds good. Stay dry.
All right, you too. Thanks.
Let's do our best. He's right, though. We got rivers flowing on pit lane here. You guys, it is really puddling. And you know how the elevation changes on this pit lane. So we do have some actual rivers going in certain spots of this pit lane.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, that's a concern too. You have cars that you have to come into the pits, and you know, they, you know, much reduced speeds and the like, but you have to take everything into consideration. We're seeing those runs. And getting back to Darren Law, talk about an all-rounder. I mean, everything Darren, you know, when he was driving it a lot, he was wicked quick. He's been superb in the team management roles. You take a look at some of the little lakes forming out there. And I'm really glad he found this team management role. Because for us, he was uncomfortably good as a commentator as well when he would step
Didn't steal our job. But yeah, and to Darren's point, I mean, I think with these conditions, for me, when I'm driving, I love the wet because I lived in England and obviously raced a lot in the rain and enjoyed these conditions. And I think for a driver, the main thing is a lot of people you'll see, you'll have a practice day and it rains. They keep the car in the garage. No, you're not going to get any better by not driving it. So that's the first thing. Get out there, experience it. But when you are out there, visibility was number one. It's no fun when you're driving blind and you're coming down long, high-speed section. You're not sure what's ahead of you. And secondly, aquaplaning. That is no fun when you're basically out of control when you're in a straight line. So those are the two things. But outside of that, I found finding the grip level and working with the track was a lot of fun. And I'm wondering whether Darren had to get relief from Bentley and Porsche to go and drive that Mercedes.
Oh, that's a good point. Absolutely. So,
Shady little side deal there for Darren Law.
And I'll tell you, anybody who is uncomfortable with bad visibility and you want to get into a position where you get a lot more comfortable with it, just do a little ice racing because you live in bad visibility when you're flogging around on those frozen lakes and the lake. So let's get back down to Ryan, busy man down in a wet pit lane.
Well, gotta talk to somebody, and we found Mike Johnson to talk to here. He's team manager for Park Place and this Volt Racing operation. So a lot of rain right now. What has Alan said about what he's dealing with out there?
Well, I think he's saying the same thing everybody else is, which is why the officials just right now called a red flag, I believe. Visibility is horrible, and I mean, you can just look right here on Putt Lane. It's there's very little pavement that's actually sticking up above the water. I think there might be some fish out there. It's getting deep enough, and it's just, you know, they're making the right decision, I think. The visibility is bad. The puddling is so bad that the hydroplaning is very difficult. There's some very, you know, dangerous corners at this track, some very high-speed stuff. And, you know, a lot of these guys are out here having fun, and there's no reason to damage a lot of equipment or possibly injure somebody. And so, you know, it's fine. Obviously, it's great that we're in the lead. But, you know, it's just, I think they're doing the right thing. And if they decide to restart this later, do something else, that's fine, too.
It's been something of a challenging weekend for the team. Unfortunately, one of the race cars got some damage, so how much of a boost is it to get a result here in race 2 and at least have something to take away?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you know, it's congratulations to Drew Stavely, obviously, first of all, because they locked up the Sprint AM Championship. Something we never thought we had a really great shot at anyway, but we were fighting for it pretty hard, and they wrapped it up yesterday. So, but, you know, Alan's big goal this year is the Porsche Cup, which is a worldwide award for basically not the best, but the most productive Porsche driver in the entire world. And every time we do one of these races, we get excellent points towards it, and he's got a really fighting shot for it. And I don't think there's been an American winner in maybe 20, 30 years. So really, we've got a big goal to do that. And by doing all of the Sprint and Sprint X races in this series, plus doing races in another series, are getting points. And that's really our goal. So we're going to double up again when we get to Vegas and do the Sprint West race and the Sprint AM race and just keep going. So, yeah, when we had a DNF yesterday, a win today obviously really helps recover from that.
Good news is I don't think it's going to rain in Vegas.
It probably won't, but I've seen it snow in Vegas before, so you never know. I mean, I just wish they would have done the race around the pool so I could have stayed at the pool the whole time and just been like, yep, keep going, looking good. But I guess they're going to make me go to the racetrack.
Maybe next year.
Maybe next
I'll
year.
co-sign with you on that plan.
That'd be great.
All right, thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Mike Johnson, well, I'll tell you, he does an amazing job with Park Place and managing the team and also managing the strategy and the like. And yeah, this is pretty rough. So red flag here, and the field will be making its way down into pit lane, and we'll wait for updates from race control. Yeah, they were talking about Brynjolfsson, and you know, after the incident yesterday in the Sprint X race, Cal, you know, with that contact, that the damage, then you start a race in these conditions. He started 4th, worked his way up to 2nd, and then when Stavely had his moment, he and Andretti came together. Brynjolfsson finds himself in the lead after a wreck like that, to then be ready to just say, all right, different deal. Get your head into it and go after it here. Pretty impressive drive by Alan.
And I think Alan's got that personality where he can reset pretty quickly. He seems to take the ups and downs of racing in his stride, and certainly there's a frustration factor as now the crews will have a little bit of fun, and you give them too much time and they suddenly get really crazy. Should be a prize for this one, who can float the furthest down pit lane with a device that's been made during this red flag.
He was messing with the ballast there in the sponson holes.
EOP.
Exactly.
But I love Mike Johnson, such a pro. Those were the words of a team manager whose car was leading. Yes, we should definitely stop this race right now.
Yeah, look at that.
That is nice.
The boat of performance, EOP.
Yeah, that is sweet. The Ferry Motorsport team don't have a car that handles like that this afternoon. That's going to be the big question mark as we look ahead to the rest of today's racing, if indeed we get back to some racing, as that GT3 race. A lot of question marks up in the air with that one, with the Ferrari and Bentley that really struggled in wet conditions last year. We haven't seen a lot of rain in our races, but for the championship leaders, they are definitely concerned about how the Ferrari will deal with these severe conditions.
Yeah, it just did not seem to take to it, did it at all? And well, I'll tell you, it's just keeps darker and darker out there. There is as thick as it can be, this moisture coming down at this stage. So clock has stopped on this race. And of course, we'll update you as soon as we hear anything from race control at this point. I know this is something that not necessarily we're always crazy to do, but you take a look here with James back in 7th. And earning the 7th place points, and Cooper and Pompelli 1-2. I mean, this championship just continues to get pretty intense for James, who came in with a handy little lead. It's been a big hit so far.
It has, and this is exactly what he didn't want to have happen. I mean, you had to change the motor, you got to take the grid penalty, and things were going well. Kept his nose clean, made up the positions, got the reset, but as we alluded to, and then Stefan Pfeiffer, the engineer on the team, said we have to get back to green flag racing, otherwise they're going to get hurt by this.
There's a look at Ian, who coming into this event, we talked about it before, has just been virtually unstoppable in recent years here at Road America. A number of poles, but most importantly, 4 straight wins coming in, and so this is a whole different scenario for them at this stage based on the success that they had previously. Obviously trying to drape some of the inlets on the car to keep moisture from getting into certain areas here. And again, just looking at the run order here, one, a little bit of a surprise to me to see Courtney down because of his track experience, but then you have to consider the fact that he's running one of the older spec GT4 Maseratis. It doesn't have ABS, it doesn't have traction control. In these conditions, I'm sure that car was downright diabolical.
Yeah, and it can get pretty sketchy. You have a big moment and suddenly it's like all of your confidence disappears quickly.
A look at the nose of Mr. Jared Andretti's Endurance Warranty Window World McLaren sitting in pit lane. Might have been from a little touch with Drew Stavely, but it looks like there was some tape on it that from a previous incident as well that may have exaggerated it. Here's a look at it. Look at the right of your screen.
Yeah, just he and Drew Stavely arguing over the same piece of real estate down into Canada corner. It's under investigation, but I'm not sure. Depend what viewpoint the stewards had as to if anyone was at fault there.
Absolutely. We are under a red flag. You can see there the 23:11 time left in the race has stopped under red flag. And we're just waiting for any kind of an update from race control. We've heard from a couple of team managers who said that it's very unlikely they would think we would go back to racing based on what they're seeing right now in terms of what they're experiencing in pit lane and also apparently what's on the radar. We haven't heard anything at this moment. We get an update here under the red flag. They say Parc Fermé conditions have been lifted. Normally under red flag, you are treated like you're in Parc Fermé at the end of a race. You cannot work on the cars. Well, in this scenario, they've lifted that so drivers can get out if you want. You can give the drivers a little breather. You can cover up inlets like we've seen in some instances just to be able to look after these cars and drivers just a little bit while we just sit and wait this out potentially at this stage. And just want to talk again about, we've been following things, but Marco Radicic and that PrecisionDrivingTech.com BMW, again, good run in the race yesterday, set a lap good enough to start 5th, dropped back a little bit at the start, and then is just methodically in these conditions worked his way up into 3rd, showing his rain prowess. And they've also have been starting their own line, not just as a race team, but an accessory line, and one of them is a window product that you put on to help dissipate rain and water and the like, and I wonder if that may not be helping him just a little bit in these conditions. Yeah.
Good partner to have.
Absolutely.
With those Parc Fermé conditions, you can see some adjustments going on here. Drew Staveley's car, that looks like they're tweaking on the rear wing to change the downforce level.
I think it's also the diffuser is loose, maybe from that touch.
Yep.
So they're trying to tie wrap that up or something. Ever hopeful that if they, and that's the thing, you don't know if you're going back to green, but if you are, you better be ready. And given the opportunity here, take that moment to get a fix done on the car. As for Staveley, he must be just smiling at, I mean, sheer talent, of course, that he does have in prodigious amounts, but the fortune here that he got it clinched before this weather happened and the contact happened and everything. It could have been a much longer road for him at this stage.
Yeah, we saw earlier today with Johann Schwartz, who clinched the touring car title yesterday. Makes it easy to go racing. You can be a bit more aggressive. You're not thinking big picture any longer and just go for the win. And maybe that's what was going on between Andretti and Staveley down into Canada Corner. They're running in different classes now, with Andretti being promoted to the pro class this year with his performances early. But nonetheless, they were battling for overall position.
See the crews out, looking over cars, officials keeping an eye on it. And right behind Staveley there, you can see that bright yellow entry is Brynjolfsson that parked leading in the AM category, then Staveley in the Mustang, then there's Radicic in that Precision Driving Tech BMW. So let's get back down to Ryan.
All right, well, just give you a little weather update, and it is well and truly wet down here at this point. We've had some cars firing up here in the last couple of moments, and it actually looks like cars are about to be pulling away, maybe. There's something going on down here. I don't know if they're pulling away to go out on track. No, it's a checkered flag, evidently. Cars behind me are going to be headed into the paddock area, into tech. We'll try and track down somebody to talk to at some point, but that's the latest.
Yeah, thanks very much, Ryan. And it's the right call. I mean, it was absolutely just socked in here in terms of this rain, and you can just see how dark it is because of that. And you get the spray we've seen already in this one. You know, you hate to have it happen, but you can't argue with it, Cal.
You can't, and typically we see carnage before that sort of call is made.
Yes.
So some spectators will be thinking, or some fans watching us right now may be thinking, well, we didn't see anything bad going on. Well, the good decisions are made before something bad happens.
Yes, preventative is the right way here, and yeah, exactly. But you look at this. I mean, look at that. That's into the braking zone from a huge rate of speed down into Canada Corner. It's just not on at all, and I think it's the right call. And you know, do keep in mind, yeah, there's a little bit of time between this event and the season finale at Vegas, but it's not a lot. And there's really no point with season finales coming up to risk wadding up a bunch of perfectly healthy race cars. So I think it's the right call, obviously. Frustrating, sure, but that's how it goes. But here are the provisional results. And for Cooper and Pumpelly, sitting there first and second with James back in seventh, really putting themselves in some good spots here to take this championship to the end. Lewis and Robinson sitting in the third and fourth spot, and then Andrew Davis rounding out the top five with Ian James in the points sitting in the seventh spot. And then you look at the white numbers with the red panels. That is your AM category, and there's Brynjolfsson. And boy, going for that that International Porsche Cup, a win really pays valuable points, and he got that one here over Stavely, and then again the on-form Marco Radicic, Dynan, and Gaples. And Tony had dropped out of the top five for a while, and right before that red flag came out, and worked his way back into fifth, so he'll get fifth place points for that as well.
And unofficially, I've just calculated that Michael Cooper will have an 11-point lead over Pumpelly, and James now falls from the lead starting yesterday to a 1-point deficit this morning to now an 18-point deficit in the championship with just 2 rounds remaining at Vegas.
So there you go. It's definitely game on here, and a big swing, certainly for Ian James. Well, we just heard from Ryan Marine. Sorry for that little pause, but obviously this is a little bit of a unique scenario here, and Ryan's going to head over into the Parc Fermé area for the post-race tech and see if he can grab a couple of drivers and interviews. And obviously would love to hear from the drivers at the sharp end of things here, but also from Drew Stavely is clinched with our championship. Let's check in with Ryan. Who and what have you found?
I think we found a race winner and a sweep of the weekend, if that's the case, for Michael Cooper. Congratulations. That was a strange one.
Yeah, thank you. You're looking a little more
Yeah.
wet than I am, but it's really starting to come down now. Definitely a strange race. You know, track conditions were okay to start the race. I think that was fine, but it was definitely starting to rain heavier, and we're getting some puddling down the back straight, and you know, really high-speed areas going up into turn 13. So I think they made the right call, at least going yellow flag and neutralizing it. But once we did that, it just started, you know, the track started getting worse. But, you know, once I had that big gap after the first lap and it was puddling like that, I was just trying to be careful and keep it on the track, not do anything crazy, knowing that somebody was eventually going to cause a yellow.
Well, when you were out there and it was under green, especially early in the race, what were the conditions like and how beneficial for you was starting up front and running up front?
Yeah, starting up front was key. You know, I don't know what it would have been like, you know, back in 5th or 6th or something, if I could have battled my way up there or not. I couldn't see really what was going on behind me, and I was just focusing forward. But, I mean, the conditions were fine. I had clear sight. But, yeah, it was really tricky in a couple places for sure.
Huge weekend for you in the championship as well.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I don't know where anyone else really finished. I saw something happen to Spencer on the pace lap where he lost a position, and then, or at least a position. I don't really know what happened, but definitely a huge weekend for Black Dog Speed Shop and McLaren. Really glad to do it here at Road America, Black Dog's home track, and yeah, we'll see how everything shakes out after this and start focusing on Vegas.
Unofficially an 11-point lead for you headed into Las Vegas, and there's a lot of unknowns obviously around a track that no one's been to. And run in the configuration that we're going to see there. So it's not a huge lead, but I'm sure that's the position you want to find yourself in with a little more wiggle room.
Yeah, definitely want some wiggle room, but I mean 11 points is really only the difference between a 1st and a 4th right now. So, you know, there's enough competitive cars that you can easily be back in 7th or 8th or, you know, at least back half of the top 5. And so we're going to have to be on the aggression still and be on offense.
Congratulations on a big weekend. We'll see you in Vegas.
Thank you again.
Well, he's built like a fullback, so on offense is a place he's very familiar with. And one thing he is just extremely good at is, you know, on a low grip, in any low grip scenario, being able to find speed pretty quickly. An unfamiliar track one that isn't maybe rubbered in much and the like. He's going to be something to watch, I think.
Good point, and we've seen that early in the year when they didn't have the pace with the McLaren. His opening laps was sensational, got a lot of track position, and in conditions like this, he was immediately at home, as Ray Sorensen said, and Michael would confirm they don't have any track time with that McLaren in the wet conditions. That didn't phase Michael at all. He built that 3-4 second lead on the opening lap, but it's a big weekend for him. For Ian James, he went the other direction. Spencer had a good weekend, a couple of podium runs for him. So it's game on. Ian needs a big weekend in Vegas. He's going to have to roll the dice.
Well said, indeed, yeah, nice segue. The guy who I think might be ruining this decision a little bit in terms of what potential he had, obviously I think everybody agrees with the decision, but Spencer Pumpelly, right before that happened, he put in one heck of a good lap and looked to have some pace, and it set the fastest lap of the race at this point. Look at that. There's Cooper, and there's Spencer, and there's Shane Lewis. That was your podium.
Yeah.
As the time that checkered flag comes out.
Shout out to Robinson Racing. We've got reports overnight that Robinson Racing, this may be their last race, not just for the season, but in its entirety. This is an operation that's been together with pretty core nucleus of guys led by Jimmy Fraser, and 30 years of racing. Great to see those guys having a strong run here today. Podium run for Shane, Gar, son of George, who basically leads the whole team as the team owner in the top 4 as well. So it'll be a shame to see them go. They've been a wonderful part of our championship for a long time now, a quality group, and still very much on top of their game.
Very true. I mean, and I was very fortunate when I first started traveling with Trans Am back in the day. Again, dating ourselves with about 30 years ago, and Robinson Racing very much involved, and George Robinson, wicked quick, and Trans Am Camaros and the like, just an absolutely fabulous group, and obviously things changing a little bit for this legendary team. Ryan?
Yeah, in a big way, and we'll certainly talk about your race here in just a moment, Gar, but we did have the news that this is it for the team after a really long history, something like 29 years, I think, for Robinson Racing. This is going to be the final event, and I know for you as part of the family, part of the team, I mean, this is part of your life. What are your emotions?
It's, I mean, I kind of wish it would have ended under green flag. I wish we were able to see, but it happens the way it is. Yesterday we had a really good race, I think, and Watkins Glen we had a really good race. So I think we went out showing strong. I couldn't be more proud of my guys. It's really tough for me to be leaving them this year for next year, and it's a lot. I think it's going to sink in later in the day, but just because it was such an odd finish, but it's definitely going to be tough. I've had issues sleeping for the past few months ever since we made the decision, but it's for where I want to go and everything. It's something that I had to do, but I couldn't thank them enough for getting me the opportunities that I've been getting and where I'm going. But just thanks to everyone. Thanks Jimmy. Thanks Dave. Thanks Ross, Furry, Norm, Unk, Ben, everybody. It's just Rick Millay, John Mills. They're both no longer with us, but they all played a huge part with me, and thanks to Shane too. Shane did a fantastic job teaching me everything that he knew, and it's going to be it's hard, but I thank them a lot for getting me where I am.
Well, this will at least be a memorable final race for a couple of reasons. Shane getting on the podium, but also the circumstances surrounding it. What was it like out there?
It was brutal. I couldn't. The last time I had vision that bad was in the Mint 400 in like the morning section, whenever all the dust was around and there was the sun coming through and you couldn't see anything. I was having to look out of the side windows to see where I was and stuff. And I've never. They asked me on the radio what the issues were with the what the issues were with the track. I'm like, the straightaways. the corners are just fine because you can see wherever. I mean, granted, the right hand corners were better than the left because I had no vision in front of me, but the straightaways were just awful. It was just bad. But I think everyone was in the same boat, and no one really got hurt, so that was good. And I don't think any fenders were damaged or anything like that. So I think as bad as this went, I think it went well.
That's a quote to sum up the weekend in many respects. Thank you very much, Gar.
Thank you.
As bad as this went, it went well. Yeah, I like that. And also, you could hear the emotion, obviously, for this team closing its doors and the like. We're going to miss them.
Well, racing is family. They're going to miss the rest of this paddock. But there's some boys that have been there since the get-go. You mentioned Norm and Dave Warfel, and certainly led by Jimmy Fraser.
Absolutely. So just a quick look at some of the brief highlights from this one. Cooper able to fend off Lewis down into this first turn. He got him into the lead, and he was able to hang on to it for the duration. The rain then started to really pick up. We ended up under a full course caution for a fair amount of time as well. This is the opportunity that Cooper had. You can see that visibility issue. Spencer Pumpelly doing what he could and to recover from a moment where they had to do a reset on the safety car lap and got him back into it.
That could have been the key moment, really, because if Spencer had started where he should have done, maybe he could have got around Michael Cooper. A little touch there between Jared and Andretti and Drew Stavely. Causes a moment for him.
Stavely able to recover, and Cooper eventually getting the win with Brynjolfsson when they red flagged it because of this level of rain. Vegas is the finale. We'll see you then.